Marcus Thompson never imagined that a chance encounter at a gas station would lead him to discover two voices that would change everything. What started as cruel schoolyard mockery would become something extraordinary. But first, he had to rescue them from a life that had already given up on them. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The fluorescent lights of the Sunoco station buzzed overhead as Marcus Thompson filled up his pickup truck on that humid Tuesday evening in June. He'd been working double shifts at the construction site, trying to make ends meet since his wife Sarah had passed away 8 months earlier. The medical bills still arrived like clockwork, each envelope a reminder of the fight they'd lost. Marcus rubbed his tired eyes and glanced at his watch. 7:43 p.m. His 12-year-old son Dylan would be wondering where he was, probably heating up another frozen dinner and doing homework alone at their kitchen table. The guilt gnawed at him, but the overtime pay was the only thing keeping them afloat. As he replaced the gas cap, a commotion near the dumpsters behind the station caught his attention. Two small figures were digging through the garbage, their movements quick and furtive like scared animals. Marcus squinted in the dim light and realized they were children, twin girls who couldn't have been more than 11 years old. "Hey," he called softly, not wanting to startle them. "You kids okay?" The girls froze, then slowly turned toward him. Even in the poor lighting, Marcus could see they were identical. Same dark curls escaping from messy ponytails, same wide brown eyes now filled with fear. Their clothes were too big, clearly hand-me-downs or thrift store finds, and both girls clutched plastic bags containing what looked like discarded food. "We're fine, mister," one of them said, her voice small but defiant. "We weren't doing nothing wrong." Marcus approached slowly, his hands visible. Years of working construction had taught him how to move around skittish things, equipment, animals, and apparently frightened children. "I didn't say you were doing anything wrong," he said. Gently, "I'm Marcus. What are your names?" The twins exchanged a look, having one of those silent conversations that only siblings could share. Finally, the one who had spoken first stepped slightly forward. "I'm Luna," she said. "This is my sister Stella." "Pretty names," Marcus said, meaning it. "You live around here?" Another look passed between them. Stella, who had remained silent, tugged on her sister's sleeve, but Luna shook her head almost imperceptibly. "We live with our grandma," Luna said. "She sent us to get stuff." Marcus glanced at the bags in their hands and felt his stomach tighten. No grandmother sent children to scavenge through gas station dumpsters. He'd seen enough in his 42 years to recognize the signs of kids who were raising themselves. "When's the last time you two had a real meal?" he asked. "We eat," Stella spoke for the first time, her voice barely above a whisper, but carrying the same defensive edge as her sister's. "I'm sure you do," Marcus said, "but I mean a hot meal, something that didn't come from—" He gestured toward the dumpster. The girl's silence was enough. Marcus made a decision that would have made Sarah proud. She'd always been the one to bring home stray cats and injured birds, insisting they had room for one more creature that needed help. "There's a Denny's across the street," he said. "You want to get some pancakes?" "My treat." Luna's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Why?" "Because I'm hungry and eating alone is depressing," Marcus said, which was partly true. "Plus, my wife always said food tastes better when you share it with someone." Something in his tone must have convinced them, because after another silent conversation, Luna nodded. "Okay, but we can't stay long." The Denny's was nearly empty, just a few truckers and a couple of teenagers sharing a milkshake in a corner booth. Marcus chose a table by the window where the girls could see the parking lot. He sensed they needed to know they could run if necessary. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and sensible shoes, didn't bat an eye at the unusual. "Trio," She brought crayons and placemats for the girls without being asked, and Marcus felt a surge of gratitude for small acts of human decency. "Order whatever you want," he told Luna and Stella as they studied the menu with the intensity of archaeologists examining ancient texts. "Can we really get anything?" Stella asked, her voice still soft but with a hint of wonder creeping in. "Anything on that menu," Marcus confirmed. They ordered carefully, chocolate chip pancakes for Luna, French toast for Stella, and both requested orange juice with the reverence most people reserved for fine wine. Marcus got coffee and a burger he wasn't particularly hungry for, but he wanted the girls to feel comfortable eating. As they waited for their food, Marcus learned fragments of their story. The twins were 11, as he'd guessed. They attended Jefferson Elementary, though their attendance was sporadic. Their grandmother was their legal guardian, but she was sick a lot, according to Luna, which Marcus suspected meant addiction or mental illness. "What grade are you in?" he asked. "Fifth," Luna said, "but we might have to repeat it, because you missed too much school." Stella nodded, finally warming up enough to join the conversation. "Grandma Rose forgets to wake us up sometimes. Or she doesn't have money for the bus. How do you usually get to school?" "We walk," Luna said. "It's not that far, only about 3 miles. Marcus's heart clenched. 3 miles each way for 11-year-old girls, probably without breakfast, often. Arriving late and dirty, he wondered how many teachers had written them off as troublemakers or lost causes. Their food arrived, and Marcus watched the girls eat with a mixture of careful restraint and barely contained hunger. They clearly wanted to devour everything in sight, but had learned to pace themselves, unsure when the next meal might come. "Do you like school?" he asked. "I mean, when can you go?" Luna and Stella exchanged another look, this one tinged with something Marcus couldn't quite identify: embarrassment, sadness. "It's okay," Luna said carefully. "Some of the kids aren't very nice to us." "What do you mean?" Stella put down her fork and looked at her sister, who seemed to be deciding how. "Much to reveal." "They make fun of us," Stella said quietly, "because of how we dress and stuff, and because we smell sometimes." Marcus felt anger building in his chest, but he kept his voice gentle. "That's not okay. Have you told your teachers?" Luna snorted, a sound too cynical for an 11-year-old. "Mrs. Patterson says we need to try harder to fit in. Mr. Wilson just ignores it." "What kind of things do they say?" The girls grew quiet, and Marcus was about to change the subject when Luna spoke up. "They call us the Trash Twins," she said, her voice steady, but her eyes filling with tears she refused to let fall. "Because we dig through garbage and our clothes are dirty." Stella reached over and squeezed her sister's hand. "And they make jokes about us singing." "You sing?" For the first time since he'd met them, both girls' faces lit up with something approaching joy. "We love to sing," Stella said, her soft voice growing stronger. "We know lots of songs." "We make up harmonies," Luna added. "Stella hears music in everything, the washing machine, car engines, even the way people walk." "That's amazing," Marcus said, and meant it. "So what's the problem with the other kids?" The light faded from their faces. "Last week, some kids dared us to sing in front of the whole cafeteria," Luna said. "They said if we were so good, we should prove it." "They were making fun of us," Stella whispered. "Everyone was laughing before we even started." "Did you sing anyway?" Luna nodded. "We sang Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It's our favorite." "And what happened?" The girls looked at each other, and Marcus saw a mixture of pride and hurt in their expressions. "Everyone got really quiet," Stella said, "even the kids who were laughing." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "But then Chad Morrison started clapping really slow and sarcastic," Luna continued. "And he said, 'Wow, the Trash Twins actually think they're good.' And everyone started laughing again." Marcus felt his hands clench into fists under the table. Chad Morrison was going to get a talking to from his parents if Marcus had anything to say about it. "I bet you were good, though," he said. "We thought we were," Stella said sadly, "but I guess we were wrong." "Maybe those kids just don't know good music when they hear it." Luna shrugged. "Doesn't matter. We're not singing at school anymore." They finished their meal in comfortable silence, the twins savoring every bite while Marcus's mind raced. He thought about Dylan, safe at home with a full belly and clean clothes, complaining about normal kid problems like too much homework and not enough video game time. These girls were the same age, but living in a completely different world. When the check came, Marcus paid without fanfare, then looked at the twins seriously. "I want to ask you something, and I want you to think about it before you answer, okay?" They nodded. "How would you feel about having a safe place to stay? Somewhere you could take showers, sleep in real beds, and not worry about your next meal?" Luna's eyes narrowed again. "What kind of place?" "My place," Marcus said simply. "I have a son about your age. We have extra bedrooms, and honestly, the house has been too quiet since my wife died. I think she would have liked you to—" "You don't even know us," Stella said, but her voice held hope alongside suspicion. "I know enough," Marcus replied. "I know you're brave enough to take care of yourselves and each other. I know you're smart enough to be cautious of strangers. And I know you have something special, this singing thing, that deserves to be nurtured, not mocked." "What about our grandma?" Luna asked. Marcus had been thinking about that. "We'll figure it out. Maybe start with just weekends or nights when she's not feeling well. Give you a place to go when things get tough." The twins were quiet for a long moment, having another of their silent conversations. Finally, Luna spoke. "Can we think about it?" "Of course. But in the meantime, I want you to have this." Marcus pulled out one of his business cards and wrote his personal cell phone number on the back. "If you ever need help, food, a ride, or just someone to talk to, you call me. Day or night. Promise me." Luna took the card and studied it carefully before tucking it into her pocket. "Okay." As they prepared to leave the restaurant, Marcus felt like he was standing at the edge of something significant. He'd lost Sarah, but maybe he could help save these girls. Maybe they could save each other. "One more thing," he said as they walked toward the parking lot. "I'd like to hear you sing sometime, when you're ready." Stella smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from either of them. "Really? Really?" "I have a feeling Chad Morrison doesn't know what he's talking about." Luna grinned, and for a moment Marcus could see the confident, happy children they might have been under different circumstances. "Maybe we'll sing for you," she said, "if you're nice to us." "Deal," Marcus said, extending his hand for a shake. Both girls took it, their small hands disappearing into his calloused palm. As he drove them back to their grandmother's apartment, a run-down complex on the wrong side of town, Marcus knew his life was about to change. He thought about Dylan, who had been asking for siblings since he was old enough to understand the concept. He thought about Sarah's empty sewing room that could easily become a bedroom. He thought about two voices that deserved to be heard, not silenced by cruelty and circumstance. The next morning, Marcus woke up thinking about Luna and Stella. He dreamed about Sarah, and in the dream, she'd been smiling at him with that look she got when he did something that made her proud. At the construction site, he found himself distracted, checking his phone repeatedly to see if the girls had called. His foreman, Dave Martinez, noticed his preoccupation during their lunch break. "You okay, Marcus? You seem off today." Marcus found himself telling Dave about the previous evening, the gas station, the dumpster, the restaurant. Dave listened, without interruption, nodding occasionally. "So you're thinking about taking them in?" Dave asked when Marcus finished. "I'm thinking about it. Sarah and I always wanted more kids, but after Dylan, Marcus trailed off. They'd tried for years to give Dylan a sibling, but it hadn't happened. These aren't babies, man. They come with baggage, trauma. You ready for that? Marcus had been asking himself the same question all morning. I don't know if anyone's ever ready for that, but I keep thinking about them digging through garbage while Dylan's at home complaining that we don't have the right kind of cereal. Dave nodded slowly. My sister fostered kids for a while. It's not easy, but she said the ones who needed it most were the ones worth fighting for. That evening, Marcus picked up Dylan from his after-school program and decided to test the waters. They stopped for pizza on the way home, and over slices of pepperoni, Marcus broached the subject carefully. Dill, how would you feel about having some company around the house? Dylan looked up from his pizza, interested. Like a dog? Like kids, girls about your age. Dylan's eyes widened. Are you getting married again? No, buddy. Nothing like that. These are kids who need help, maybe a place to stay sometimes. Marcus explained about Luna and Stella, leaving out the worst details, but giving Dylan enough information to understand the situation. His son listened with the serious expression he'd worn too often since his mother's death, the look of a child. Forced to grow up too quickly. So they don't have parents? Dylan asked. They have a grandmother, but she's not able to take very good care of them right now. Dylan was quiet for a moment, processing. Would they live with us? Maybe, if everyone agrees it's a good idea. Would I have to share my room? No, they'd have their own room. Remember Mom's sewing room? Dylan nodded, then asked the question Marcus had been hoping for. When can I meet them? 2 days later, Marcus's phone rang at 2:17 a.m. He jerked awake, instantly alert. Middle-of-the-night calls usually meant emergencies in his line of work. Hello, Mr. Marcus? The voice was small and scared. Luna. Luna? What's wrong, sweetheart? Can you come get us, please? Grandma Rose is acting really weird, and there's a man here, and we're scared. Marcus was already reaching for his jeans. Where are you? Are you safe right now? We're hiding in the bathroom with the door locked. The man is yelling at Grandma, and she's crying. I'm on my way. Stay on the phone with me, okay? Don't hang up. Marcus grabbed his keys and ran to his truck, still talking to Luna. They're in 15 minutes. Are you and Stella together? Yes, we're both here. Good. Don't open that door for anyone except me. I'll knock 3 times, then 2 times, then 3 times again. That's our code, okay? Okay. 3, 2, 3. Marcus broke several speed limits getting to the apartment complex. He could hear voices in the background of the call, angry shouting, things being thrown. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. When he arrived, he took the stairs to the second floor 2 at a time. Apartment 2B was easy to find. The noise was audible from the hallway. Marcus knocked on the bathroom door, using their agreed-upon code. The door opened immediately, and both girls tumbled out, throwing themselves against him. They were wearing pajamas that were too small, and Stella was crying silently. It's okay, Marcus said, wrapping his arms around them. I'm here. You're safe. From the living room came the sound of glass breaking, followed by a woman's scream. Marcus made a decision. We're leaving. Right now. He led the girls down the hallway and out, to his truck, buckling them into the back seat. As they drove away, Luna finally spoke. Is it okay that we called you? Marcus met her eyes in the rearview mirror. It's more than okay. It's exactly what you should have done. You were very brave. Are we going to your house? Stella asked, her voice still shaky. Yes. Dylan's excited. To meet you. And that's how Luna and Stella Morrison came to live with Marcus and Dylan Thompson. Not through official channels or court orders, but through a 2 a.m. phone call. And a man who couldn't turn away from children in need. The next few weeks would bring challenges none of them could have anticipated, but they would also bring something else. The sound of 2 voices learning to trust again, and eventually learning to sing. The first morning at the Thompson house began with chaos. Luna and Stella had spent most of the night awake, jumping at every sound, whispering to each other in the twin bed Marcus had hastily assembled in Sarah's former sewing room. When Dylan's alarm went off at 6:30 a.m., both girls shot upright like soldiers under attack. Dylan appeared in their doorway, already dressed for school, his sandy hair sticking up at odd angles. "Dad says breakfast is ready," he announced, then paused. "Are you guys okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "We're fine," Luna said automatically, though her knuckles were white from gripping the blanket. "No, you're not," Dylan said matter-of-factly. "You look terrified. The house makes weird noises at night, but it's just the heating system. Dad keeps saying he'll fix it, but Mom used to say he was better at building other people's houses than maintaining his own." It was the first time Dylan had mentioned his mother naturally in months, and something about his casual honesty seemed to relax the twins. Downstairs, Marcus was juggling 3 different breakfast preparations: scrambled eggs for Dylan, pancakes for the girls, remembering their restaurant order, and coffee for himself. He looked harried but determined. "Sleep okay?" he asked, though the dark circles under everyone's eyes made the question rhetorical. "Your house talks," Stella said solemnly. Marcus chuckled. "Yeah, it's old. Built in 1987, same year Dylan was born. Everything creaks and groans, but it's solid. You'll get used to it." Over breakfast, Marcus outlined the immediate plan. He'd already called Jefferson Elementary to inform them that Luna and Stella would be staying with him temporarily. He'd arranged for Dylan to show them around when they arrived at school. "I don't want to go," Luna said, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. "I know," Marcus said, "but education is important, and avoiding those kids who were mean to you isn't going to make anything better." "What if they're worse now?" Stella whispered. "What if they found out about Grandma Rose and the police and everything?" Marcus hadn't mentioned any police, which meant the girls had more experience with law enforcement than they'd revealed. Another piece of their complicated puzzle. "Then we deal with it," Marcus said simply. "Together. Dylan, I want you to stick close to Luna and Stella today. If anyone gives them trouble, you come find a teacher immediately." Dylan nodded seriously. "What if the teacher doesn't care?" "Then you call me." Marcus handed each of the twins a slip of paper with his cell phone number. "I'm 15 minutes away from that school. If someone's being cruel to you, I want to know about it." The drive to Jefferson Elementary was tense. Luna and Stella sat pressed together in the back seat while Dylan tried to lighten the mood by pointing out various landmarks and sharing random facts about their teachers. "Mrs. Chen in the office is really nice," he said. "She keeps peppermints in her desk, and Mr. Rodriguez, the janitor, knows everyone's names, even kids who graduated years ago. He'll probably remember you guys from before." When they arrived at school, Marcus walked them inside personally. The administrative assistant, Mrs. Chen, greeted them warmly and handed the twins temporary enrollment paperwork. "Mr. Thompson called yesterday," she said kindly. "We're glad you girls are here. I've spoken with your teachers about your situation, and everyone's committed to helping you succeed." Marcus knelt down to the twins' eye level. "Remember what I said. Any problems at all, you call me. I'll be here before you know it." Luna nodded, but Stella looked like she might cry. On impulse, Marcus pulled both girls into a quick hug. "You're not alone anymore," he whispered. "Don't forget that." The first few hours went better than expected. Luna and Stella's 5th-grade teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, had rearranged the seating chart to place them near friendly students rather than the usual troublemakers. The twins kept their heads down and focused on their work, catching up on assignments they'd missed during their sporadic attendance. But trouble found them at lunch. Chad Morrison, the ringleader from the cafeteria singing incident, spotted them immediately. He was a stocky 12-year-old who'd been held back a year and used his size advantage to intimidate younger students. "Well, well," Chad announced loudly as Luna and Stella found seats at an empty table. "Look who's back. The trash Twins cleaned up nice. Where'd you steal those clothes? The girls were wearing outfits Marcus had hastily purchased at Target the night before. Simple jeans and t-shirts, but clean and properly fitted. Luna's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. I heard your crazy grandma got arrested, Chad continued, his voice carrying across the cafeteria. Child services finally catch up with you freaks? That's when Dylan Thompson surprised everyone, including himself. He stood up from his table across the room and walked directly over to Chad Morrison. Back off, Dylan said, his voice clear and steady despite the tremor Marcus would have recognized from their backyard basketball games. Chad laughed. Oh, look. The trash twins got themselves a bodyguard. What are you going to do about it, Thompson? Dylan wasn't particularly big for his age, and Chad had at least 20 pounds on him. But Dylan had something Chad didn't. A father who taught him that standing up for people was more important than winning fights. I'm not going to do anything, Dylan said, but my dad will. He's Marcus Thompson from Thompson Construction. You know the company that built the new wing of this school? He's got the principal's direct number, and he doesn't like bullies. It wasn't entirely true. Marcus had worked on the school project as a subcontractor, not the main builder, but Chad didn't know that. What Chad did know was that adults with connections to the school administration were people you didn't mess with. Whatever, Chad muttered, but he moved away from the twins' table. Luna looked at Dylan with something approaching awe. You didn't have to do that. Yeah, I did, Dylan said, sitting down next to them. Dad says family sticks together, and you guys are family now. It was the first time anyone had called them family in years, and Stella's eyes filled with tears. She quickly wiped away. The rest of the school day passed without incident, but the real test came that afternoon when Marcus picked them up. As they walked to his truck, he noticed Luna and Stella seemed different, more relaxed, less like they were preparing to run at any moment. How was it? He asked, once they were all buckled in. Chad Morrison was being a jerk, Dylan reported. But I told him to back off. Marcus glanced in the rearview mirror at the twins. Everything okay? Dylan stood up for us, Stella said quietly. No one's ever done that before. And Mrs. Rodriguez said we're really smart, Luna added. She said we just need to catch up on some things we missed, but our reading levels are actually above grade level. Marcus felt a surge of pride that had nothing to do with his own accomplishments. That's because you are smart. Sometimes smart kids get overlooked when other things are going wrong in their lives. That afternoon established a routine that would carry them through the next several weeks. Marcus would drop the kids off at school, work his construction job, and pick them up in the afternoon. Evenings were spent on homework around the kitchen table, with Marcus helping where he could, and all three kids teaching each other different subjects. Luna excelled at math, Stella was a natural writer, and Dylan had an encyclopedic knowledge of science facts. They made an unlikely study group, but it worked. The breakthrough came 3 weeks after the twins moved in, on a rainy Thursday evening when they'd finished homework early. Marcus was in the kitchen cleaning up dinner dishes when he heard something. That made him stop and listen. Singing. Not loud or showy, but soft and sweet, drifting down from upstairs. Two voices blending in perfect harmony, creating something beautiful out of what sounded like a lullaby. Marcus dried his hands and quietly climbed the stairs, following the sound to the twins' room. The door was cracked open, and he could see Luna and Stella sitting on their bed, Stella brushing Luna's hair while they sang together. Dylan sat in the hallway just outside their room, listening with rapt attention. The song was Blackbird by the Beatles, but their version was gentler, more vulnerable than the original. Their voices complemented each other perfectly. Luna's slightly stronger and more confident, Stella's softer but with an ethereal quality that gave the harmony its magic. When they finished, there was a moment of perfect silence before Dylan whispered, "That was incredible." Marcus stepped into view. He's right. That was absolutely beautiful. The twins looked embarrassed but pleased. "We were just messing around," Luna said. No, you weren't, Marcus said seriously. That was real talent. Where did you learn to harmonize like that? We taught ourselves, Stella said. We used to listen to the radio in Grandma Rose's car before it broke down. We'd sing along and figure out different parts. Have you ever had music lessons? Both girls shook their heads. Marcus made another decision that would have made Sarah proud. Would you like to? The next Saturday, Marcus loaded all 3 kids into his truck and drove to Miller's music store downtown. The owner, Janet Miller, was a woman in her 60s who'd been teaching piano and voice for 40 years. Marcus had found her through a recommendation from Mrs. Rodriguez, who moonlighted as the school's music teacher. Janet listened to Luna and Stella sing Amazing Grace in her small studio, her expression growing more amazed with each note. When they finished, she sat quietly for a long moment. How long have you two been singing together? She asked. Always, Luna said. Since we were little. Have you ever performed for anyone besides family? The twins exchanged a look, and Marcus saw them both remember the cafeteria incident. Not really, Stella said. Janet nodded thoughtfully. I'd like to work with you girls, if you're interested. You have something special, not just good voices, but an instinct for harmony that can't really be taught. It just has to be nurtured. We can't afford lessons, Luna said quietly, the old wariness creeping back into her voice. Who said anything about paying? Janet smiled. I've been looking for students who actually love music, not just kids whose parents think lessons are good for college applications. If you're willing to work hard and practice regularly, we can work something out. Marcus started to protest. He could afford lessons, even if it meant tightening the budget elsewhere. But Janet held up a hand. I'm serious. In 40 years of teaching, I've maybe had 5 students with natural talent like this. It would be my privilege to work with them. And so began another phase of their new life together. Twice a week, Marcus would drive the twins to Miller's music store for lessons with Janet. She taught them proper breathing techniques, how to read music, and most importantly, how to trust their instincts while still learning discipline. Dylan often came along, doing homework in the waiting area while his adoptive sisters learned scales and arpeggios. Sometimes Janet would let him sit in on lessons, and she discovered he had a good ear for rhythm, even if he couldn't carry a tune. At home, the sound of music became as common as the creaking of old pipes. Luna and Stella would practice in their room, their voices floating through the house like something from a dream. Marcus found himself looking forward to those moments when the house felt full again in a way it hadn't since Sarah's death. The real test came in November, when Mrs. Rodriguez announced that Jefferson Elementary would be holding its annual fall concert. Each grade was expected to contribute a performance, and the 5th graders were struggling to decide what to do. We could do a group song, suggested Amy Chen, Mrs. Chen's daughter. Something everyone knows. That's boring, complained Jake Martinez. My brother's class did that last year. Mrs. Rodriguez looked thoughtful. Actually, I have an idea. Luna and Stella, would you two be interested in performing something? You have beautiful voices. The cafeteria fell silent. Luna and Stella looked at each other with a mixture of terror and longing. We don't perform, Luna said quickly. Why not? Mrs. Rodriguez asked gently. Because, Stella whispered, people laugh. Mrs. Rodriguez's expression softened with understanding. Has anyone here heard Luna and Stella sing? Dylan raised his hand. They're amazing, really, really amazing. A few other students nodded. Apparently word had gotten around about the twins' talent, separate from the old cruel jokes. What if, Mrs. Rodriguez suggested, you girls just sang for our class first? Just us. If you're comfortable with that, maybe we could think about the concert. If not, no pressure. Luna and Stella had another of their silent conversations. Finally, Luna nodded. What song? Mrs. Rodriguez asked. Somewhere Over the Rainbow, Stella said softly. It's our favorite. And there it was. The song that had gotten them mocked months earlier, chosen again not out of defiance, but out of hope. Mrs. Rodriguez dimmed the classroom lights slightly and asked everyone to close their eyes and just listen. Luna and Stella stood at the front of the room, holding hands, and began to sing. Their version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow was nothing like Judy Garland's. It was slower, more contemplative, with Luna taking the main melody while Stella wove, a harmony that seemed to dance around the familiar tune. When they reached the bridge, "Someday I'll wish upon a star," their voices came together in a blend so perfect it seemed impossible that two separate people were creating it. When they finished, the classroom was absolutely silent. Then Amy Chen started clapping, and the rest of the class joined in, not the slow, sarcastic clapping Chad Morrison had started months ago, but genuine appreciation. "That was beautiful," Mrs. Rodriguez said, and her voice was slightly hoarse, with emotion. "Girls, I think you should seriously consider the concert." Luna looked at her sister, then at Dylan, who was beaming with pride, then at the faces of her classmates, kids who had ignored her or pitied her, or in some cases been cruel to her. They were looking at her and Stella with something she'd never seen before: respect. "Okay," Luna said, "we'll do the concert." That evening, Marcus got a call from Mrs. Rodriguez explaining what had happened. When he hung up, he found the twins in the living room, looking nervous but excited. "Dad," Luna said, and Marcus's heart jumped a little every time one of them called him that, "we're going to sing at the school concert." "That's wonderful," Marcus said. "How do you feel about it?" "Scared," Stella admitted, "but good scared, I think. Like when you're at the top of a really high diving board," Luna added. "You know you can do it, but it's still scary." Marcus pulled both girls into a hug. "Your mom would be so proud," he said, and realized he wasn't just talking about Sarah anymore. Somewhere along the way, these girls had become his daughters in every way that mattered, and he had become their father. The concert was still 2 weeks away, but already Marcus could feel something shifting in their small family. The twins were learning to trust not just him and Dylan, but themselves. They were discovering that their voices, literally and figuratively, had power and beauty. And for the first time since Sarah's death, Marcus was beginning to believe that broken things could be repaired, that lost things could be found, and that sometimes the most beautiful music came from the most unexpected places. The weeks leading up to the fall concert transformed the Thompson household in ways Marcus hadn't anticipated. What started as nervous practice sessions in the twins' bedroom evolved into something that drew the entire family into its orbit. Janet Miller had suggested the girls choose a second song to complement Somewhere Over the Rainbow, something that would showcase their range and versatility. After much deliberation, Luna and Stella settled on The Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel, a choice that surprised everyone, including themselves. "It's not exactly what you'd expect from 11-year-olds, Marcus mentioned to Janet during one of their lesson pickups. "That's what makes it perfect," Janet replied, watching through the studio window as the twins worked through a particularly challenging harmony. "They understand the emotion behind the song in a way most adults don't. They've lived in silence, real silence where no one listens. Now they're finding their voices." The transformation wasn't limited to their musical abilities. Luna and Stella were changing in other ways too. Luna's defensive edge was softening, though her protective instincts toward her sister remained fierce. Stella, meanwhile, was discovering a confidence she'd never had the luxury to develop. Her soft-spoken nature remained, but it now came from choice rather than fear. Dylan was evolving as well. Having siblings, even adopted ones, had given him a sense of purpose he hadn't realized he was missing. He appointed himself their unofficial manager, creating practice schedules and even designing what he called promotional materials for the concert. "Look," he announced one evening, spreading hand-drawn posters across the kitchen table. "I made these to put up around school." The posters featured stick-figure drawings of two girls with musical notes floating around them, and the words Luna and Stella Thompson, Fall Concert, Prepare to be Amazed, written in Dylan's careful block letters. Thompson, Luna noticed immediately. Dylan flushed slightly. Well, you live here now, and Dad's been talking to some lawyers about making it official, right, Dad? Marcus nearly choked on his coffee. He had been consulting with a family attorney about guardianship and eventual adoption, but those conversations were supposed to be private until he had concrete answers. Dylan, Marcus began, but Luna interrupted. Really? Her voice was small but hopeful. You want to adopt us? Marcus set down his coffee cup and looked at both girls seriously. If you want me to. I know you have a grandmother and I don't want to replace family you already have. But if you'd like to stay here permanently as my daughters, then yes, I'd be honored to adopt you. Stella's eyes filled with tears. The happy kind this time. Grandma Rose hasn't visited once since we've been here. She hasn't even called. That doesn't mean she doesn't love you, Marcus said carefully. Sometimes adults have problems that make it hard for them to take care of children, even when they want to. We know, Luna said quietly, but we love it here. We love you and Dylan and this noisy house and having enough food and going to school every day. And Janet's lessons, Stella added, and not being scared all the time. Then we'll make it official, Marcus said, pulling both girls into a hug. You'll be Thompsons for real. Dylan whooped and stuck his posters back up. This is going to be the best concert ever. But as the performance date approached, the twins' anxiety began to build. The last time they'd sung publicly at school, it had been a humiliating disaster. Now they were voluntarily putting themselves back in that position, in front of not just their classmates, but parents, teachers, and community members. 3 days before the concert, Stella woke up with what appeared to be laryngitis. Her voice was barely a whisper, and she had a slight fever. Luna was beside herself. We can't perform without Stella, she told Marcus over breakfast, her own voice tight with worry. The harmonies don't work with just one person. Maybe this is a sign, Stella croaked from the couch, where Marcus had installed her with hot tea and honey. Maybe we're not supposed to perform. Marcus recognized the fear beneath her words. He'd seen it in construction workers who'd been injured on the job. Sometimes the fear of getting hurt again was worse than the original injury. Janet's coming over this afternoon, he said. Let's see what she thinks. When Janet arrived, she took one look at Stella and nodded knowingly. I've seen this before. Sometimes when we're really nervous about performing, our bodies try to protect us by getting sick. You think she's faking? Luna asked, immediately defensive. Not faking, Janet said gently, but sometimes stress can make us physically ill. Stella, how do you feel about the concert, honestly? Stella looked down at her hands. Terrified, she whispered. Of what specifically? Of them laughing again, of messing up, of everyone realizing we're not actually good. Janet sat down next to her on the couch. Do you think I'd waste my time teaching students who weren't good? Maybe you're just being nice. Honey, I'm 72 years old. I don't have time left to waste on being nice about things that matter. You and your sister have a gift, a real, genuine gift. That doesn't mean you'll never make mistakes or have off days, but it means you have something special to offer the world. Janet turned to address both twins. I want to tell you something about performing. Every professional singer I've ever known gets nervous before going on stage. The ones who don't get nervous are usually the ones who aren't taking it seriously enough. Really? Luna asked. Really? I once knew a woman who went on to sing at the Metropolitan Opera. She threw up before every single performance for the first 5 years of her career. Not because she wasn't good, but because she cared so much about doing well. Stella's fever broke that night, and her voice returned the next morning, but the anxiety remained. Marcus could see it in the way both girls picked at their breakfast. in the nervous energy that had them pacing around the house. That afternoon, he made a decision that surprised even him. "Get in the truck," he told all three kids. "We're going somewhere." 20 minutes later, they pulled up in front of Willowbrook Nursing Home, where Sarah's mother lived. Marcus hadn't visited in several weeks. The combination of work, the twins, adjustment, and his own grief had made the visits less frequent than he intended. "Why are we here?" Dylan asked as they walked through the facility's front doors. "Because," Marcus said, "sometimes when we're nervous about performing for strangers, it helps to practice with people who already love us." Sarah's mother, Dorothy. Jen was 93 years old and suffered from mild dementia, but her face lit up when she saw Marcus and Dylan. Her confusion was apparent when she noticed the twins. "Marcus, dear, who are these lovely girls?" "These are Luna and Stella, Mom Chen. They're living with us now. They're my daughters." Dorothy's eyes grew bright with understanding, though Marcus wasn't sure how much she would retain. "More granddaughters? How wonderful. Sarah always wanted Dylan to have siblings." "They're going to sing for us," Dylan announced. "They're really, really good." Marcus had called ahead and gotten permission to use the nursing home's community room. Several other residents had gathered, drawn by the promise of live music. Luna and Stella looked nervous but not panicked. This felt safer than a school auditorium full of peers and parents. "What would you like to hear?" Luna asked the small audience. "Something from my era," called out Frank Morrison, a Korean War veteran who spent most of his time in the activities room doing crossword puzzles. The twins exchanged a look and launched into "Dream a Little Dream of Me," a song they'd learned from Janet. Their voices blended perfectly in the small space, and Marcus watched the elderly faces around him soften with pleasure and nostalgia. When they finished, Dorothy was wiping her eyes. "That was beautiful, girls. Just beautiful. Sarah would have loved you both so much." "Can you sing the one from the concert?" Dylan asked. Luna and Stella performed both "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" and "The Sound of Silence" for their small audience. The nursing home residents listened with the kind of attention most performers only dream of. No fidgeting, no distractions, just pure appreciation for the music. When they finished their mini-concert, Frank Morrison struggled to his feet and started clapping. "In 60 years of listening to music," he said, his voice shaky but strong, "I've rarely heard anything so pure and honest. You girls have a gift from God." The drive home was quiet, but it was a peaceful quiet rather than an anxious one. Stella, who sat in the back seat humming softly, something she only did when she felt completely safe and happy. "Thank you," Luna said to Marcus as they pulled into their driveway. "That helped." "Sometimes," Marcus replied, "we need to remember that music isn't about impressing people or being perfect. It's about sharing something beautiful with the world." The night before the concert, Marcus found himself in the kitchen at 2 a.m., unable to sleep. He was thinking about Sarah, wishing she could be there to see what their family had become. The sound of soft footsteps made him turn around. Luna stood in the doorway wearing one of Dylan's old t-shirts as pajamas. "Can't sleep either?" "Too much excitement," Marcus said. "How are you feeling?" "Good. Different than I expected." Luna climbed onto one of the kitchen stools. "I keep thinking about what Frank said, about having a gift from God." "You do have a gift, but that's not what I was thinking about." Luna twisted her hands in her lap. "I was thinking about how Stella and I used to sing when things were really bad with Grandma Rose, when there was no food or the electricity was turned off or she was acting scary. We'd hide in our room and sing, and it made everything seem less terrible." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Music has power like that." "Yeah, but I never thought about it being a gift we could give to other people. I always thought it was just for us, to make ourselves feel better. But seeing those old people today, how happy they looked, It made you realize your voices can bring joy to others. Luna nodded. I think that's why I'm not as scared anymore. It's not about whether we're perfect or whether some kids might laugh. It's about sharing something that makes people feel good. Marcus reached over and squeezed her hand. That's exactly what your mom, what Sarah would have said. She always believed that the best gifts were the ones you shared. Do you think she would have liked us? Luna, she would have absolutely adored you and Stella. She had a thing for strays and underdogs and anyone who needed a little extra love. She would have been so proud to call you her daughters. The morning of the concert dawned crisp and clear. Marcus made a special breakfast, pancakes cut into star shapes, because Dylan had insisted that stars need star food. The twins ate nervously but steadily, their excitement beginning to override their anxiety. Janet arrived early to help with their final preparations. She'd brought stage makeup and helped the girls with their hair, transforming them from nervous kids into young performers who looked ready for their moment. Remember, she said as she applied a light touch of lip gloss, the audience wants you to succeed. They're not hoping you'll fail. They're hoping you'll transport them somewhere beautiful. The school auditorium was packed that evening. Marcus had never seen so many people at a Jefferson Elementary event. Word had spread about the twins' talent, and the community had responded with curiosity and support. Backstage, Luna and Stella waited with the other fifth-grade performers. Their act would be last, and Marcus could see them getting more nervous as the evening progressed. Dylan stayed with them, appointed as their official moral support. When their turn came, Mrs. Rodriguez introduced them with genuine warmth. Our final performers tonight are Luna and Stella Thompson. These young ladies have overcome tremendous challenges this year, and we're honored to share their incredible talent with you. The twins walked onto the stage hand in hand, looking smaller and more vulnerable under the bright lights. Marcus held his breath as they took their positions at the microphones Janet had borrowed from the high school. For a moment, there was complete silence. Marcus could see Luna scan the audience, her eyes finding his in the crowd. He gave her a small nod and mouthed, "You've got this." Luna looked at her sister, and they shared one of their silent conversations. Then Stella nodded, and they began to sing. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high. Their voices rose together, filling the auditorium with something that transcended simple performance. This wasn't just two girls singing a song. This was testimony, hope made audible, proof that beautiful things could emerge from broken places. When they transitioned into the sound of silence, the audience seemed to collectively lean forward. The contrast between the songs, one full of hope, one acknowledging darkness, created a narrative that spoke to every person in that room who had ever faced hardship and found their way through it. As the final notes faded, the auditorium remained silent for what felt like an eternity. Then someone in the back started clapping, and the applause built like a wave, washing over the stage where two former trash twins stood transformed into something magnificent. Marcus wiped tears from his eyes and looked around at faces filled with wonder and appreciation. Even Chad Morrison, who sat with his parents 3 rows ahead, was clapping enthusiastically. Luna and Stella took their bow, their faces radiant with joy and relief. As they walked off stage, Marcus heard fragments of conversation from the audience. Absolutely incredible. Where did they learn to sing like that? Those harmonies were perfect. I got chills. But the comment that meant the most came from Dorothy Chen, who had insisted on attending despite her age and confusion. As Marcus helped her to her car afterward, she gripped his arm with surprising strength. "Sarah was here tonight," she whispered. "I felt her. She was so proud of her family, and Marcus knew with absolute certainty that she was right." The morning after the concert, Marcus woke to the unusual sound of silence. No alarms, no rushing footsteps, no hurried breakfast preparations. It was Saturday, and for the first time in weeks, no one had anywhere urgent to be. He padded downstairs to find Luna sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of handwritten notes spread before her. She looked up when he entered, her face glowing with something he'd never seen before, unqualified happiness. "People wrote us letters," she said, holding up a colourful piece of construction paper covered in crayon drawings and careful third-grade handwriting. "Mrs. Rodriguez brought them over early this morning. Kids from the whole school." Marcus poured himself coffee and sat down beside her. The notes ranged from simple drawings of musical notes and rainbows to more elaborate messages. One from a second grader named Emma simply said, "You made my mom cry happy tears." Another, from a fourth-grade boy named Miguel, read, "I used to be scared to sing in music class, but now I want to try because you were so brave." "This one's my favorite," Luna said, sliding a note written on lined notebook paper across the table. It was from Chad Morrison, "Luna and Stella." It read in surprisingly neat handwriting. "I'm sorry I was mean to you guys. My dad explained that sometimes people are jerks when they're jealous of something they can't do. I can't sing at all. Like, really bad. My mom says I sound like a wounded moose. You guys are actually really talented, and I was stupid. I hope we can be friends. P.S. Dylan is pretty cool for standing up to me. Respect." Marcus raised his eyebrows. "Chad Morrison apologized?" Stella cried when she read it, Luna said. "But good crying." "She's still asleep, but she kept reading it over and over last night." Dylan wandered downstairs in his pajamas, followed by Stella, who was indeed clutching Chad's note like a treasure. "Dad, can we make pancakes?" Dylan asked. "Like celebration, in pancakes, with chocolate chips and whipped cream and all the good stuff? I think that's an excellent idea," Marcus said. "But first, I have something to tell you guys." The kids gathered around the table, their faces expectant. Marcus had been waiting for the right moment to share the news he'd received Friday afternoon, just hours before the concert. "I got a call from Mrs. Patterson at the county office," he began. "The adoption paperwork has been approved. As of Monday morning, Luna and Stella Thompson will be your legal names." The twins looked at each other in amazement. Even though they'd been discussing adoption for weeks, the reality of it felt monumental. "Really?" Stella whispered. "We're really going to be Thompsons?" "Really and truly," Marcus confirmed. "Dylan, you're officially getting the sisters you've been asking for since you were 5 years old." Dylan whooped and tackled both girls in an enthusiastic group hug that sent them all tumbling onto the kitchen floor in a pile of giggles. As they made their celebration breakfast, Marcus's phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Thompson, this is Rebecca Martinez from KKTV Channel 7 News. We heard about your daughter's performance at Jefferson Elementary last night, and we'd love to do a story about them. Would you be interested?" Marcus looked at Luna and Stella, who had frozen mid-pancake flip. "Can I call you back? I need to discuss this with my family." After he hung up, the kitchen was quiet, except for the sizzling of pancakes on the griddle. "They want to put us on TV?" Luna asked, her voice uncertain. "Just for a good story," Marcus said, "about your talent and your family, but only if you want to. You get to decide." "What would we have to do?" Stella asked. "Probably sing a song, maybe answer a few questions about your experience. But we can set boundaries. No questions about your life before you came here, nothing that makes you uncomfortable." The twins had one of their silent conversations, while Dylan bounced excitedly in his chair. "Can we think about it?" Luna asked finally. "Of course. Take all the time you need." But before they could make a decision about the TV interview, another opportunity presented itself. Janet Miller called Sunday afternoon with news that would change everything. "Marcus, I hope you're sitting down," Janet said when he answered the phone. "I just got off the phone with David Kim from the Nashville Children's Choir. He was visiting. His mother in town this weekend and happened to attend your school concert Friday night. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. The Nashville Children's Choir was one of the most prestigious youth music programs in the country. He wants to meet Luna and Stella, Janet continued. He's driving back through town Tuesday afternoon and he's hoping they might audition for the choir's summer intensive program. Janet, that sounds incredible, but we couldn't afford. It's a full scholarship, Marcus. Room, board, instruction, everything. They only offer 2 scholarships per year to exceptional young talents. Marcus sank into his kitchen chair, overwhelmed. 6 months ago, Luna and Stella had been digging through garbage behind a gas station. Now, they were being courted by one of the nation's premier music programs. What does that mean exactly? He asked. It's a 6-week program in Nashville during the summer. The children live in dorms at Vanderbilt University, work with professional voice coaches, and perform with symphony orchestras. Alumni have gone on to perform on Broadway, at the Met, everywhere you can imagine. When Marcus explained the opportunity to the twins, their reactions were complicated. Excitement warred with anxiety, hope battled fear. 6 weeks is a long time, Stella said quietly. It is, Marcus agreed, but it's also an incredible opportunity to develop your talents. What if we're not good enough? Luna asked. What if we get there and everyone else is better than us? Then you'll learn from them, Dylan said pragmatically. That's what school is for, right? Learning from people who know more than you do. Tuesday afternoon, David Kim arrived at the Thompson house, carrying a guitar case and wearing a warm smile. He was younger than Marcus had expected, maybe mid-30s, with an easy manner that immediately put the twins at ease. I have to tell you, he said as they gathered in the living room, in 15 years of scouting young talent, I've rarely heard voices like yours. There's something about the way you blend that suggests a deep musical connection. We're twins, Luna said, as if that explained everything. I work with lots of siblings, David said. Being twins helps, but what you two have goes beyond genetics. You listen to each other in a way that can't be taught. He had them sing 3 songs, their concert pieces plus Danny Boy, which he taught them on the spot. As they worked through the Irish ballad, Marcus watched David's expression grow increasingly amazed. The way you picked up that harmony, David said to Stella after they finished. I've worked with trained singers who couldn't do that in 3 tries, and you got it in 1. Is that good? Stella asked. It's remarkable, David said. Now let me tell you about the program. The Nashville Children's Choir Summer Intensive was more comprehensive than Marcus had imagined. Beyond voice training, the students studied music theory, composition, stage presence, and performance psychology. They worked with professional musicians and performed in venues ranging from small recital halls to the famous Ryman Auditorium. It's demanding, David explained honestly. Long days, high expectations, intense focus. But for students who are serious about developing their musical gifts, it's transformational. Would we be the youngest students? Luna asked. Among the youngest, yes. Our usual age range is 12 to 18, but we occasionally make exceptions for exceptional talent. After David left, promising to call with his decision within 48 hours, the Thompson family held a serious discussion about the opportunity. I want you to know, Marcus said, that whatever you decide is okay with me. If you want to go, I'll be proud of you for being brave enough to take on that challenge. If you decide it's not right for you, I'll be proud of you for knowing your own minds. What do you think we should do? Stella asked. I think, Marcus said carefully, that 6 months ago, you were living a life where opportunities like this didn't exist. Now you have choices, and that's a beautiful thing, but the choice has to be yours. The twins spent that evening in deep conversation, their voices carrying through the thin walls of their shared bedroom. Marcus could hear the cadence of their discussion, periods of rapid exchange followed by thoughtful silences, but he couldn't make out the words. Thursday morning, David Kim called with his decision. Both girls had been accepted into the program, with full scholarships. "We want to go," Luna announced at breakfast, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was saying. "We're scared, but we want to try." "Are you sure?" Marcus asked. "It's okay to be scared. Courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing important things even when you are afraid." "We talked about it all night," Stella said. "We decided that if we're going to have this gift, we should learn how to use it properly. Plus," Luna added with a grin, "we've already handled way scarier things than music camp." The next few months flew by in a whirlwind of preparation. The girls continued their regular lessons with Janet, who was beside herself with excitement about their opportunity. They worked on building their repertoire, learned basic music theory, and developed better stage presence. Marcus found himself dealing with a mixture of pride and anxiety. He was thrilled about the girls' opportunity, but worried about being separated from them for 6 weeks. They'd only been a family for 8 months. Would the bonds they'd built be strong enough to withstand that kind of separation? Dylan, meanwhile, appointed himself as their pre-camp training coordinator. He created practice schedules, timed their songs, and even set up mock auditions where he played the role of stern music director. "You need to work on your posture," he announced after one impromptu living room performance. "Janet says singers should stand like they have a string pulling them up from the top of their heads." "When did Janet tell you that?" Luna asked, amused. "I listen during your lessons," Dylan said matter-of-factly. "Someone has to make sure you're paying attention." The TV interview with Channel 7 aired in March, featuring a segment called "Local Twins Discover Their Voice." The piece had been tastefully done, focusing on their musical talent and their new family rather than their difficult past. The response from the community had been overwhelmingly positive. More letters, more invitations to sing at local events, and even a few requests from other families in crisis situations asking Marcus for advice. One evening in April, as spring was painting their neighborhood in shades of green and pink, Marcus found himself sitting on the front porch with Luna and Stella, watching Dylan practice skateboard tricks in the driveway. "Are you nervous about Nashville?" he asked. "Yes," Stella said immediately, "but excited nervous, not scared nervous." "What's the difference?" Luna thought for a moment. "Scared nervous is when you don't want something to happen. Excited nervous is when you really want something to happen, but you don't know if you're ready for it." "That's very wise," Marcus said. "You know, I felt excited nervous the day I brought you two home from the restaurant. I wanted to help you, but I had no idea if I knew how to be a good father to daughters." "Do you think you're a good father to daughters now?" Stella asked. Marcus looked at these two remarkable girls who had transformed his family and his understanding of what love could look like. Luna, who had learned to trust again after years of disappointment. Stella, who had found her voice in more ways than one. Both of them calling him Dad without reservation, bringing music and laughter and purpose back into a house that had been too quiet for too long. "I think," he said, "I'm learning to be. And I think your mom, both your birth mom and Sarah, would be proud of the young women you're becoming." The morning they left for Nashville was chaos and tears and excitement all mixed together. Marcus had packed and repacked their suitcases 3 times. Dylan had created a care package filled with their favorite snacks and a playlist of songs that reminded him of home. And Janet had arrived early to give them a final pep talk. "Remember," she said as they stood in the driveway next to Marcus's truck, "you belong there. You earned this opportunity through your talent and hard work. Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't deserve to be there." At the airport, both girls clung to Marcus and Dylan with tears streaming down their faces. 6 weeks isn't that long," Marcus said, though his own voice was thick with emotion. "And you can call us every day." "What if we forget how to be a family?" Stella whispered into his shoulder. Marcus pulled back and looked at both girls seriously. Stella, families aren't something you forget. They're something you carry with you wherever you go. We'll be right here when you get back. And we'll want to hear everything about your adventure. Promise? Luna asked. Promise, Marcus and Dylan said in unison. As Marcus watched the plane taxi down the runway, carrying his daughters toward an opportunity he could never have imagined when he first spotted them behind that gas station. He felt Sarah's presence, as clearly as if she were standing beside him. The quiet miracle wasn't just that two discarded girls had found their voices. It was that in learning to sing, they had taught an entire family and an entire community how to listen with their hearts. And this, Marcus realized, was only the beginning of their song. The first week without Luna and Stella felt like learning. To live in a house with half its rooms suddenly empty. Marcus found himself automatically setting 4 places at the dinner table before remembering it was just him and Dylan. The silence during meals was deafening. No harmonizing voices drifting. Down from upstairs, no excited chatter about music theory or upcoming performances. Dylan handled the separation differently. He threw himself into a summer project, building an elaborate model train set in the basement that he claimed was for when the girls get back. But Marcus noticed his son sleeping with his bedroom door open, as if listening for voices that wouldn't come for 5 more weeks. The daily phone calls became the highlight of their routine. Every evening at 7 o'clock sharp, Marcus's phone would ring, and Luna and Stella would take turns describing their day at the intensive program. We had our first masterclass with Professor Williams today, Luna reported during their 3rd call. She's this tiny woman who's probably 80 years old, but when she starts singing, it's like magic coming out of this little person. And we learned about vowel modification, Stella added, her excitement bubbling through the phone. Did you know that when you sing high notes, you have to change the shape of your mouth so the vowels sound right to the audience? We also learned that we're not the worst singers here, Luna said with relief. There's this boy from Texas who can hit notes so high that dogs probably hear him, but he can't harmonize at all. And this girl from Michigan has perfect pitch, but no sense of rhythm. What about you two? Marcus asked. How are you fitting in? People are starting to know our names, Stella said quietly, not because we're weird or different, but because we're good at something. The pride in her voice made Marcus's chest tight with emotion. These girls who had spent years being invisible or mocked were now being recognized for their gifts. And our roommates are really nice, Luna added. Sarah Beth is from Georgia, and she's teaching us how to braid friendship bracelets. And Maria is from California, and she knows all these songs in Spanish that she's going to teach us. As the weeks progressed, the phone calls revealed remarkable growth. The twins were learning advanced vocal techniques, studying music composition, and performing with professional accompanists. But more importantly, they were building confidence and friendships with other young musicians who understood their passion. We had our first solo evaluations today, Luna reported during week 3. I was so nervous I thought I might throw up. But Professor Chen said I have excellent breath control for my age. And Professor Williams told me I have an intuitive understanding of harmony, Stella added. She said that's something you can't really teach. You either have it or you don't. Dylan always insisted on having his own conversation with his sisters. During these calls, he would update them on his train set progress, neighborhood gossip, and his elaborate plans for their welcome home party. I'm making a banner, he announced during one call. It says Welcome Home Nashville Stars, with glitter and everything. Mrs. Chen from next door is helping me with the letters because she has better handwriting than me. Meanwhile, Marcus was discovering that parenting didn't pause just because children were temporarily absent. He fielded calls from the program coordinators about everything from homesickness, minimal, To academic performance, exceptional. To social integration, surprisingly smooth. The girls are remarkable, David Kim told him during one of their weekly check-ins. They're hard-working, respectful, and incredibly talented. But what's most impressive is how they support their fellow students. They're natural collaborators. They've always looked out for each other, Marcus said. I guess they're extending that protective instinct to their new friends. It's more than that. They have this ability to help other kids feel confident about their own abilities. Yesterday, I watched Luna spend an hour helping a boy from Ohio who was struggling with a difficult passage. She didn't just show him the notes, she helped him understand the emotion behind the music. The breakthrough came during week 4, when the twins called with news that would change everything. "Dad, you're not going to believe this," Luna said, her voice electric with excitement. "Professor Williams selected us to perform a duet at the final showcase concert. It's going to be at the Ryman Auditorium," Stella added, her words tumbling over each other in her excitement. "The actual Ryman, where all the famous country singers performed. And there will be music industry people there, and our families are invited and—" "Slow down, sweetheart," Marcus laughed. "Start from the beginning." The final showcase was the culmination of the 6-week program, where selected students performed for an audience that included family members, program donors, and music industry professionals. Only 12 students out of the 40 in the program were chosen to perform solos or duets. "What are you going to sing?" Dylan asked when it was his turn on the phone. "It's a surprise," Luna said mysteriously. "Professor Williams chose it specifically for us. She said it will showcase our unique ability to blend traditional harmonies with contemporary emotion." "That sounds very fancy," Dylan said solemnly. "I'm going to wear my good tie." The next 2 weeks dragged by with painful slowness. Marcus found himself constantly checking flight prices and hotel availability for their trip to Nashville. Dylan had abandoned his train set project in favor of creating an elaborate scrapbook documenting Luna and Stella's journey from before to now. "Look at this," Dylan said one evening, showing Marcus a page he'd been working on. On the left side was a photo from the twins' first day at Jefferson Elementary. 2 scared, defensive girls in ill-fitting clothes. On the right was a recent photo David Kim had emailed from Nashville, showing Luna and Stella in matching choir robes, their faces glowing with confidence and joy. "The before and after is pretty dramatic," Marcus said. "It's not really before and after," Dylan said thoughtfully. "It's more like they were always this amazing, but nobody knew it yet, including them." The day of the showcase, Marcus and Dylan flew to Nashville with excitement and nervousness in equal measure. They hadn't seen Luna and Stella in person for 6 weeks, and Marcus worried about whether the girls might seem different, more sophisticated, perhaps outgrowing their small-town family. His concerns evaporated the moment the twins spotted them in the hotel lobby. Luna and Stella launched themselves at Marcus and Dylan with such enthusiasm that they nearly knocked over a plant display. "You came!" Stella cried, as if there had been any doubt. "Did you really think we'd miss this?" Marcus asked, breathing in the familiar scent of his daughter's shampoo and feeling complete for the first time in weeks. "You both look taller," Dylan observed critically. "And more, I don't know, professional?" It was true. 6 weeks in Nashville had refined something in both girls. They carried themselves with more confidence, spoke with greater articulation, and radiated a quiet competence that hadn't been there before. But underneath the polish, they were still unmistakably his daughters, still finishing each other's sentences, still seeking his approval, still lighting up at Dylan's silly jokes. "We have so much to show you," Luna said. "Our dorm room and the practice studios, and Professor Williams wants to meet you, and we learned how to order coffee like real musicians," Stella added importantly. "Luna likes lattes, and I like cappuccinos." "You're 11 years old," Marcus said, amused. "When did you start drinking coffee?" All the serious musicians drink coffee, Luna explained with great dignity. It's part of the culture. The Ryman Auditorium that evening was transformed for the showcase. The historic venue, known as the Mother Church of Country Music, had hosted legends from Hank Williams to Johnny Cash to Dolly Parton. Now it would host 40 young musicians, including 2 former trash twins from a small-town gas station. Marcus, Dylan, and Janet Miller, who had driven down from home, found their seats in the ornate auditorium. The program listed Luna and Stella's performance as the evening's finale, which David Kim had explained was a position reserved for the most impressive acts. The first 11 performances were remarkable. Marcus had never heard such young voices, with such technical skill and artistic maturity. A 13-year-old soprano from New York performed an aria that would have been challenging for most adults. Twin brothers from Florida delivered a bluegrass duet that had the audience stomping their feet. A 16-year-old composer from Oregon performed her own piece on piano while singing lyrics she'd written about climate change. "These kids are incredible," Janet whispered to Marcus during intermission. "Luna and Stella are in some serious company." When the lights dimmed for the final performance, Marcus felt his heart rate increase. A spotlight illuminated the empty stage as David Kim took the microphone. "Our final performers tonight represent something special," he began. "When Luna and Stella Thompson auditioned for our program 6 months ago, they had been singing together for years, but had never received formal training. What they lacked in technical knowledge, they more than made up for in natural ability and, more importantly, in their understanding that music is a language of the heart." Luna and Stella walked onto the stage hand in hand, wearing simple black dresses that Janet had helped them choose. They looked poised and professional, but Marcus could see the slight tremor in Luna's hands and the way Stella kept glancing toward the audience, searching for familiar faces. "Over the past 6 weeks," David continued, "these young women have not only improved their technical skills dramatically, but they've also learned to trust their instincts and embrace their unique musical partnership. Tonight, they'll be performing Bridge Over Troubled Water by Simon and Garfunkel, arranged specifically for their voices by Professor Williams." Marcus felt his breath catch. It was a bold choice, a song that required both technical mastery and emotional depth, performed by 2 11-year-olds who had lived through more troubled water than most adults. The opening notes were gentle, almost whispered. Stella began alone, her soft voice carrying the vulnerability of the opening verse. "When you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I will dry them all." Luna joined her for the chorus, their voices blending in harmonies that seemed to lift the words beyond mere performance into something transcendent. "Like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down." As the song built, their voices grew stronger and more confident. Professor Williams had arranged the piece to showcase both their individual strengths and their uncanny ability to support each other musically. When Luna took the lead for the second verse, her voice carried the power and determination the song demanded. When Stella rejoined for the final chorus, their combined voices filled the historic auditorium with sound that seemed to come from something larger than 2 small girls. The final notes hung in the air for a moment of perfect silence before the audience erupted in applause. Marcus found himself on his feet, clapping and crying simultaneously. Around him, industry professionals and family members alike stood and cheered for 2 children who had transformed their pain into something beautiful. But the real magic happened after the formal performance ended. As the audience began to file out, a small group gathered around the twins. Other students from the program, their families, and several adults Marcus didn't recognize. "These are the girls I was telling you about," David Kim was saying to a distinguished woman in her 50s. "Luna and Stella Thompson." The woman approached the twins with a warm smile. "I'm Margaret Foster from Universal Music Group," she said. I want you to know that in 20 years of attending these showcases, I've rarely heard anything so moving. You have something very special." "Are we in trouble?" Stella asked, still programmed to expect negative consequences from adult attention. Margaret laughed gently. "Quite the opposite. I'd like to talk to your father about some opportunities that might interest you as you continue developing your gifts." Over the next hour, Marcus found himself in conversations he never could have imagined. Record label representatives, talent, managers and music educators all wanted to discuss Luna and Stella's future. The offers and opportunities were overwhelming: recording contracts, talent development programs, scholarship opportunities at prestigious music schools. "This is all very flattering," Marcus finally said, his arm around both twins as they processed the attention. "But right now, these are 11-year-old girls who need to finish elementary school and figure out who they are beyond their musical abilities." "Of course," Margaret Foster agreed, "but I hope you'll consider staying in touch. Talent like this deserves to be nurtured carefully, and we'd love to be part of that journey when you're ready." Later that night, back in their hotel room, the Thompson family sat together on the beds and tried to process everything that had happened. "So, what do you think?" Marcus asked the twins. "How do you feel about all this attention?" Luna and Stella exchanged one of their looks, the kind that had become their trademark over the years. "It's exciting," Luna said carefully, "but also kind of scary. What if we're not as good as they think we are?" "What if we are?" Stella added quietly. "You know what I think?" Dylan said, speaking with the wisdom of a 12-year-old who had watched his family transform over the past year. "I think you're exactly as good as you are right now, and that's enough. Everything else is just extra." Marcus looked at his son with pride. "That's exactly right. You girls don't have to be anything other than who you are. Music is a gift, but it's not the only thing that makes you special. Can we keep taking lessons with Janet?" Stella asked, "even if we do other stuff too?" "Of course," Marcus said. "Janet's been part of this journey from the beginning. She's not going anywhere." "And can we keep living in the noisy house with the weird heating system?" Luna asked with a grin. "For as long as you want," Marcus promised. "That house is your home now, no matter where your music takes you." The flight home the next day was filled with chatter about their Nashville experience, plans for the upcoming school year, and speculation about what their new opportunities might mean. But as their plane descended toward their home airport, Marcus felt a sense of completion. The quiet miracle wasn't just that two abandoned girls had found their voices. It wasn't just that they had discovered they could create beauty together. The miracle was that in learning to sing, they had taught everyone around them, their new family, their school, their community, how to listen with open hearts. 3 months later, Marcus stood in the wings of Jefferson Elementary's auditorium, watching Luna and Stella perform at their second fall concert. This time, they weren't nervous 11-year-olds hoping not to be laughed at. They were confident young musicians sharing their gifts with a community that had learned to celebrate them. Their song choice this year was "What a Wonderful World." And as their voices blended in the familiar harmony, Marcus thought about the journey that had brought them all here. From a gas station dumpster to the Ryman Auditorium, from being called trash twins to being courted by record labels, from a broken family to a healed one. Chad Morrison, now in middle school but still attending the elementary concert to support. His younger sister started the standing ovation. The same boy who had once mocked their singing was now leading the applause, tears streaming down his face. After the concert, as the Thompson family walked to their truck under a canopy of stars, Dylan posed a question that had been bothering him. "Dad, do you think Mom, our first mom, Sarah, would have liked how everything turned out?" Marcus looked at his children, all 3 of them now, biological and adopted, but equally loved, and smiled. "I think," he said, "she would have said this is exactly how the song was supposed to end." Luna and Stella began humming softly as they walked, their voices intertwining in an impromptu harmony that floated up into the night sky. And Marcus knew that whatever came next, record deals or scholarship opportunities, or simply the joy of making music together, they would face it as a family. The quiet miracle was complete, but the song would continue forever. 2 years had passed since that magical night at the Ryman Auditorium, and the Thompson household had settled into a rhythm that balanced normal teenage life with extraordinary musical opportunities. Luna and Stella, now 13, had grown into confident young women whose voices had matured along with their personalities. The kitchen table had become mission control for managing their increasingly complex schedule. Marcus sat with his laptop, open, coordinating between 3 different calendar apps, while Luna practiced piano scales in the living room, and Stella worked on a composition assignment from her advanced music theory class. "Okay," Marcus said, rubbing his temples as he tried to make sense of the scheduling puzzle before him. "Regional choir auditions are next weekend, but that conflicts with Dylan's championship baseball game, and we also have that recording session with the Nashville producer on Saturday." "Dad," Dylan called from the stairs, where he was eavesdropping while pretending to do homework. "I told you my game isn't that important. The girls' stuff is way cooler." "Your championship game is absolutely important," Luna said firmly, pausing her scales. "We can reschedule the recording session." "No way," Dylan protested, appearing in the kitchen doorway with his algebra book under his arm. "This producer flew in specifically to work with you guys. Baseball happens every year. Getting discovered by someone who worked with Taylor Swift. That's once in a lifetime." At 15, Dylan had become his sister's biggest advocate and most practical manager. He'd taught himself basic music production software so he could help them create demo recordings, and he'd appointed himself as their social media coordinator. Though Marcus maintained strict oversight of anything posted online. "Actually," Stella said, looking up from her composition notebook, "maybe we don't need to choose. What if Dylan comes with us to Nashville on Friday night? He could explore the city while we record, and we could all drive back Saturday afternoon for his game." Marcus looked at his children with amazement. 2 years ago, the idea of Luna and Stella thinking beyond their own immediate needs would have been impossible. Now they were naturally considering their brother's feelings and looking for solutions that worked for everyone. "That could work," Marcus said slowly, "but it means Dylan misses school on Friday, and you girls would be pretty tired for the game on Saturday." "I can handle missing one day," Dylan said, "and I bet seeing Nashville again would be educational. Like a field trip. Plus," Luna added with a grin, "we've gotten really good at sleeping in cars." The recording session had come about through Margaret Foster, the Universal Music Group executive who had first approached them after the Ryman performance. She'd stayed in touch over the past 2 years, sending occasional opportunities their way, while respecting Marcus's insistence that the girls maintain normal childhoods. This particular opportunity was different, though. A producer named Jake Williams, no relation to their Nashville professor, was working on an album of contemporary arrangements of classic songs performed by young artists. He'd specifically requested Luna and Stella after hearing their version of Bridge Over Troubled Water. "It's not a record deal," Margaret had explained during their phone call. "It's a single track on a compilation album, but Jake has worked with some major artists, and it could open doors if you're interested." The drive to Nashville that Friday afternoon felt different from their previous trips. Instead of nervous excitement, there was a sense of professional purpose. Luna and Stella had spent weeks preparing for the session, working with Janet to perfect their arrangement and practicing in the makeshift recording studio Marcus had built in the garage. "Remember," Marcus said as they pulled into the studio parking lot, "this is supposed to be fun. If it stops being fun, we leave." "Dad," Stella said patiently, "you've said that literally every time we've done anything music-related for the past 2 years. Because it's important, Marcus replied. The moment this becomes work instead of joy, we're done. Jake Williams turned out to be a laid-back guy in his 30s who wore vintage band t-shirts and had an easy laugh. His studio was smaller than the twins had expected, but filled with interesting instruments and high-end recording equipment. I've been following your journey, he told them as he adjusted microphone positions. What I love about your sound is that it doesn't try to be anything other than what it is. Too many young artists get pushed into trends or gimmicks. You two just sing, and it's beautiful. The song they were recording was Mad World by Tears for Fears, though they were working with the slower, more haunting arrangement made famous by Gary Jules. It was a challenging piece that required both technical skill and emotional maturity. The thing about this song, Jake explained as they ran through the arrangement, is that it can sound either devastating or hopeful, depending on how you approach it. I'm curious to see which direction you two take it. Dylan had set himself up in the studio's lounge area with his homework and a pair of headphones so he could listen to the recording process. Marcus watched his son taking notes in a small notebook. Apparently Dylan was documenting everything for future reference. The first few takes were technically proficient, but lacked the emotional depth Jake was looking for. During a break, Stella sat quietly at the piano, picking out the melody with one finger. "What are you thinking about?" Luna asked, settling onto the piano bench beside her sister. "The words," Stella said softly. "All around me are familiar faces. Worn-out places, worn-out faces. It reminds me of before, before Dad found us." Luna nodded, understanding immediately. "But then there's the part about children waiting for the day they feel good, and we did feel good eventually. So maybe it's both," Stella mused, sad about what was, but hopeful about what came after. When they returned to the recording booth, something had shifted. Their voices carried a weight and wisdom that surprised even Marcus. They weren't just singing words anymore. They were telling their story, transformed through music into something universal. "That's it," Jake said softly, after they finished the take. "That's the one." The drive home Saturday morning was quiet, but satisfied. The twins had created something they were proud of. Dylan had filled his notebook with observations about the recording process, and Marcus felt the familiar mixture of pride and protectiveness that came with watching his daughters pursue their dreams. They made it to Dylan's baseball game with an hour to spare. The twins changed into their Thompson number 12 jerseys, Dylan's number, and cheered enthusiastically from the stands. When Dylan hit a triple in the 6th inning, Luna and Stella started an impromptu chant that the entire crowd picked up. "This is what I love about our family," Marcus thought, as he watched his 3 children celebrating together. They'd found a way to support each other's dreams without losing sight of what mattered most. The following Monday brought news that would change everything again. Marcus was at the construction site when his phone rang with an unfamiliar Los Angeles area code. "Mr. Thompson, this is David Chen from NBC's The Voice Kids. We've been following Luna and Stella's journey, and we'd love to have them audition for our upcoming season." Marcus nearly dropped his phone. The Voice Kids was one of the most popular singing competition shows on television, featuring young performers and celebrity coaches. An appearance on the show could launch careers or destroy childhoods, depending on how it was handled. "I appreciate the interest," Marcus said carefully, "but we're not really looking for television opportunities right now." "I understand your hesitation," David said, "but I think you should know. We've had multiple people reach out to us about the girls. Their recording session with Jake Williams, their Nashville showcase, their local performances. They're getting noticed at a national level." That evening, Marcus called a family meeting. He explained the opportunity while emphasizing that it was completely their choice. "What would it involve?" Luna asked practically. "Several rounds of auditions, potentially traveling to Los Angeles if they made it far enough. And if they were selected for the show, filming for several months," Marcus explained. "Would we have to quit school?" Stella asked. They provide tutoring for contestants, but yes, you'd miss a normal school experience for part of the year. The twins looked at each other, having one of their silent conversations. Finally, Luna spoke. Can we think about it? And maybe talk to some people who've done it before? Of course, Marcus said. This isn't a decision we need to make quickly. Over the next week, Marcus found himself fielding calls from music industry professionals, talent managers, and even a few reality TV experts. Everyone had opinions about what Luna and Stella should do. Janet Miller provided the most balanced perspective during one of their regular lessons. The television show could be wonderful exposure, she said, but it's also a very artificial environment. The girls would be competing instead of collaborating, and that might change how they approach music. What do you think they should do? Marcus asked. I think, Janet said thoughtfully, they should follow their instincts. They've been making good decisions about their music so far. Why would we start second-guessing them now? The answer came during an unexpected conversation with Chad Morrison. Now a high school sophomore, Chad had maintained his friendship with Dylan and had become genuinely supportive of the twins' success. He stopped by the house one afternoon while Luna and Stella were practicing. Can I ask you guys something? Chad said, settling into a chair in their music room. Do you actually want to be famous? It was such a direct question that both girls stopped playing and looked at him in surprise. Chad continued, everyone keeps talking about opportunities and careers and all that stuff, but do you wake up in the morning wanting to be celebrities? Or do you just wake up wanting to sing? Luna and Stella exchanged another look, but this one was different, more thoughtful than their usual rapid communication. We just want to sing, Stella said quietly. The other stuff is complicated. Then maybe, Chad suggested, with the wisdom of someone who had learned from his own mistakes, you should focus on singing and worry about the rest later. That evening, the twins made their decision. They would decline the television opportunity for now, but they would continue recording with Jake Williams and pursuing other musical experiences that felt authentic to them. We want to get better before we get famous, Luna explained to Marcus. If we get famous at all. Plus, Stella added, we like our life here. We like going to school with our friends and having dinner as a family and not having everything we do be about music. 6 months later, their recording of Mad World was released as part of Jake Williams' compilation album, Young Voices, Timeless Songs. The track gained modest radio play and significant streaming numbers, but more importantly, it established Luna and Stella as serious young artists rather than novelties. The success brought new opportunities, invitations to perform at music festivals, requests for interviews, and interest from music schools. But the family had learned to evaluate each opportunity carefully, asking not just, could this help their careers, but will this make them happy? Their answer came during a small performance at the local children's hospital, something they'd started doing monthly after a nurse reached out following their first Jefferson Elementary concert. Watching Luna and Stella sing for young patients, some their own age, others much younger, Marcus saw them completely in their element. This is why they sing, he realized, not for fame or opportunities, but to bring comfort and joy to people who need it. After their hospital performance, as they walked to the parking garage, a young mother approached them hesitantly. "Excuse me," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I just wanted to thank you. My daughter has been in the hospital for 3 weeks, and this is the first time I've seen her smile since her surgery. Your music, it reminded her that there's still beauty in the world." Luna and Stella looked at each other with tears in their eyes. No recording contract or television appearance could compare to that moment of connection. "That's when I knew," Marcus would later tell people, "that we were making the right choices. Success isn't about how many people know your name. It's about how deeply you touch the lives you reach." As they drove home that evening, With the twins humming softly in the back seat and Dylan updating their performance log on his tablet, Marcus felt grateful for the quiet miracle that had brought them all together. They'd found their voices, but more importantly, they'd learned how to use them to make the world a little brighter. The journey was far from over, but they were walking it together, one song at a time. The morning of graduation day, Marcus stood in the kitchen making coffee and listening to the familiar sounds of his household waking up. Upstairs, he could hear Dylan, now 20, moving around his room as he prepared for his summer internship at an architecture firm. The twins were in their shared music room, running through the song they would perform at the graduation ceremony, not because they had to, but because their classmates had specifically requested it. "Dad, have you seen my good tie?" Dylan called. "Down the stairs." "Which good tie?" Marcus called back. "You have about 15 of them now." Dylan had discovered a love for fashion design during his senior year and was planning to study at the Fashion Institute after finishing his architecture degree. His room had become a fascinating blend of blueprints and fabric samples, construction tools and sewing machines. "The blue one with the silver threads," Dylan clarified, appearing in the kitchen wearing dress pants and a crisp white shirt. "I made it specifically for occasions when my sisters do important musical things." Luna emerged from the music room, adjusting her graduation cap over hair that had grown long and wavy. At 18, she had inherited Marcus's height and Sarah's grace, and her voice had developed into a rich, powerful instrument that could fill concert halls or whisper lullabies with equal effectiveness. "You made us a tie?" she asked Dylan, touched. "I made you each a tie," Dylan corrected, pulling 2 beautifully crafted neckties from a garment bag. "Luna, yours has musical notes embroidered in silver thread. Stella, yours has tiny rainbows because you still love Somewhere Over the Rainbow, even though you're too sophisticated to admit it." Stella appeared, laughing at her brother's comment. She had grown into a more delicate beauty than her twin, with the same dark curls, but softer features. Her voice had developed differently too. Where Luna's was powerful and bold, Stella's had become ethereal and haunting, capable of breaking hearts with a single note. "I'm not too sophisticated," she protested, accepting her tie with obvious delight. "I just have a broader repertoire now." The past 5 years had brought countless opportunities and experiences, but the family had navigated them all with the same careful consideration they'd learned in those early days. Luna and Stella had recorded 3 more songs with Jake Williams, performed at a dozen music festivals, and received scholarship offers from conservatories across the country. But they had also graduated high school with their original class, maintained friendships with kids who had nothing to do with music, and continued their monthly performances at the Children's Hospital. They had learned to drive, worked part-time jobs at Janet Miller's music store, and experienced all the normal teenage dramas of relationships, friendships, and figuring out who they wanted to become. "Are you nervous about today?" Marcus asked, as they sat down for breakfast. "About graduation or about the performance?" Luna asked. "Either. Both." "Not really," Stella said, surprising him. "I mean, it's weird to think we're officially adults now, but it doesn't feel scary anymore. We know who we are." It was true. The defensive, frightened children he had met behind a gas station 7 years ago had grown into confident young women who understood their own worth. They had learned to navigate the music industry without losing themselves, to accept opportunities that aligned with their values, and to say no to things that didn't feel right. The graduation ceremony was held at the high school football stadium, with families packed into the bleachers under a bright June sky. Marcus sat with Janet Miller, Dorothy Chen, who at 98 insisted on attending every important Thompson family event, and a delegation from the Children's Hospital who had become like extended family over the years. When Principal Rodriguez called Luna and Stella to the podium to perform, Marcus felt the familiar flutter of pride and protectiveness he'd experienced at every one of their performances over the years. "Before we continue with our ceremony," Principal Rodriguez announced, "Luna and Stella Thompson have prepared a special song for their graduating class. These young women have brought honor to Jefferson Elementary, to our high school, and to our entire community through their musical gifts and their commitment to service." The twins took their positions at the microphones that had been set up on a small stage at the 50-yard line. They had chosen to perform In My Daughter's Eyes by Martina McBride, but their arrangement was entirely their own, a reflection on growing up and the people who had shaped them. As their voices rose together in perfect harmony, Marcus felt tears sliding down his cheeks. The song spoke about becoming the person you wanted to be, about the power of love to transform lives, about seeing yourself through the eyes of those who believed in you most. But it was the second verse that undid him completely, the one they had rewritten themselves. "In my Father's eyes I am strong and I am smart. In my Father's eyes I can mend a broken heart. He believed I had a song when I was just afraid to sing. In my Father's eyes I can do most anything." Around him, Marcus could hear other people crying, parents recognizing the universal truth of unconditional love, teachers remembering why they had chosen their profession, community members who had watched these girls grow from outcasts to inspirations. When the song ended, the entire stadium rose in a standing ovation that lasted nearly 5 minutes. But Marcus only had eyes for his daughters, who were looking directly at him with expressions of love and gratitude that needed no words. After the ceremony, the traditional graduation party at the Thompson house drew nearly 100 people. Classmates, teachers, family friends, and music industry colleagues mingled in the backyard where Dylan had set up a sound system and Janet had organized an impromptu jam session. "It's like this is your life," Dylan observed to Marcus as they watched Luna and Stella moving through the crowd, hugging friends and accepting congratulations. "Everyone who's been part of their journey is here. Even Chad Morrison had come, now a college junior, studying social work and still one of Dylan's closest friends." He approached Marcus during a quiet moment, carrying 2 plates of food. "I wanted to thank you," Chad said, handing Marcus a plate, "for showing me how to be better, watching how you handled everything with the girls, how you taught them that they were worth protecting and believing in. It changed how I think about family and kindness and standing up for people." "You figured that out yourself," Marcus said. "I just provided an example." "Yeah, but some of us needed the example," Chad replied. "I'm working with at-risk kids now, trying to be the kind of adult I wish I'd had when I was being a jerk to Luna and Stella. It all started with watching how you loved them." As the evening wound down and the last guests departed, the Thompson family found themselves alone in their backyard, surrounded by the comfortable debris of celebration. Luna and Stella had changed out of their graduation gowns into comfortable clothes, but they still wore Dylan's handmade ties. "So," Marcus said, settling into one of the lawn chairs with a satisfied sigh, 18 years old and high school graduates. "What's next?" "Well," Luna said, "we've been talking about that, actually. We got into Berkeley," Stella added, referring to the prestigious music conservatory in Boston. "Full scholarships." Marcus sat up straighter. "That's incredible. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because we also got into State University here in town," Luna continued, "with academic scholarships, and we've been thinking about which path makes more sense." "Berkeley would be amazing for music," Stella said, "but State has that new music therapy program, and we could keep living here, keep performing at the hospital, keep working with Janet. Plus," Luna added with a grin, "someone needs to keep an eye on Dylan while he's learning to be a fashion mogul." Dylan threw a wadded-up napkin at her. "I can take care of myself, thank you very much." "The point is," Stella said, "we've realized that home isn't a place you leave to find success. Home is where you build the life you want to live." Marcus looked at his 3 children, biological and adopted, but all equally his, and felt overwhelmed. By their wisdom, somewhere along the way, they had learned the most important lesson he could have taught them, that success was defined not by external achievement, but by internal satisfaction, not by how far you traveled, but by how much good you did along the way. "What about your music careers?" he asked. "All those opportunities, all that potential?" "Our music will always be part of our lives," Luna said. "But we want it to be part of lives that include other things too. Families, friendships, service to our community. Besides," Stella added, "Jake Williams said we can keep recording with him, whether we're in Boston or here, and there are plenty of opportunities for performers in this area if we want them. We've learned that we don't need to choose between music and everything else," Luna concluded. "We can have both, as long as we're thoughtful about our priorities." 2 months later, Marcus stood in another familiar location, the waiting area of Miller's music store, where he had spent countless hours over the years while the twins took lessons. But today was different. Today, Luna and Stella were the teachers, working with their first students as part of their music therapy program at the university. Through the studio window, he could see them working with 2 young boys, brothers, about the same age Luna and Stella had been when he first found them. The older boy was aggressive and defensive, clearly angry about being forced into music lessons. The younger one was withdrawn and fearful, hiding behind his brother whenever anyone spoke to him. Marcus watched Luna kneel down to the older boy's level, saying something that made him look up with surprise rather than anger. At the same time, Stella was sitting quietly next to the younger boy, not pushing him to participate, but simply being present, humming softly under her breath. "They're naturals at this," Janet said, joining Marcus at the observation window. "They understand what those boys are feeling because they've been there. It's come full circle, hasn't it?" Marcus said. "They're using their own experiences to help other kids find their voices." "More than that," Janet replied. "They're proving that healing isn't just about being rescued. It's about learning to rescue others." That evening, over dinner at their familiar kitchen table, Luna and Stella shared stories about their new students, their challenges, their small victories, their moments of breakthrough. "Marcus," Stella said suddenly, using his name in the way she only did when she had something particularly important to say, "I want you to know that everything we are, everything we've accomplished, everything we're going to do, it all started with you seeing us as worth saving. You were always worth saving," Marcus said quietly. "I just happened to be there at the right moment." "No," Luna said firmly. "You chose to be there. You chose to stop, to care, to take us home. You chose to adopt us and love us and believe in us, even when we didn't believe in ourselves. You taught us that family isn't about blood or biology," Stella continued. "It's about choosing to love someone enough to help them become who they're meant to be." Dylan, who had been quietly listening to this exchange, suddenly spoke up. "You know what the coolest part is? You guys saved Dad too. This house was way too quiet before you got here, and Dad smiled maybe once a month. Now look at us. We're like a real family from a movie or something." Marcus looked around the table at his 3 children, each so different, but all carrying pieces of his heart, and realized that Dylan was right. The rescue had gone both ways. In saving Luna and Stella, he had been saved as well, from grief, from loneliness, from the slow shrinking of a life without enough love in it. "So what's next for the Thompson family?" he asked. "More of the same," Luna said with satisfaction. "More music, more school, more helping people, more family dinners where Dylan tells terrible jokes." "My jokes are hilarious," Dylan protested. "More watching Dylan become the world's most stylish architect," Stella added with a laugh. "More proof that the best songs are the ones you sing together," Marcus said, raising his water glass in a toast. As they clinked glasses around the table, the late afternoon sun slanted through the kitchen windows, illuminating faces that had been shaped by love, loss, hope, and the quiet miracle of finding each other when they needed it most. Outside, the old house settled into its evening creaks and sighs, the heating system adding its familiar percussion to the soundtrack of their lives. Inside, four voices rose in an impromptu harmony, not perfect but beautiful in its imperfection, not professional but profound in its authenticity. And somewhere in that blend of voices, in that moment of connection, the true, quiet miracle revealed itself. Not that two abandoned girls had found their voices, but that in finding them, they had taught everyone around them how to sing. The Thompson family's song would continue, note by note, harmony by harmony, carried forward by the understanding that the most beautiful music comes not from technical perfection, but from hearts that have learned to trust each other completely. In the end, that trust, built from a chance encounter at a gas station, nurtured through years of patient love, and expressed through the daily choice to show up for each other, was the greatest song they would ever sing together. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.